really my comments really come from me reading hundreds and hundreds of applications and understanding what sits well with me, what doesn't sit well with me, and then also comparing to how other people from other areas react to certain proposals. There are 4 main criteria that you guys have to address in your application. And of course, the heavily weighted one, it comes down to your capabilities as an investigator. So it's 50%. The next one is project quality and innovation, that's 25%. And benefit and feasibility. And I have to say, benefit is the worst section written by lots and lots of applicants. People do not know how to write that. And they start losing points. So project quality is stellar, they are very good as an investigator, and suddenly it comes to benefits and I see waffle, cliche phrases, nothing telling me about your project. So for some reason, people all copy that bit from everybody else and just leaves it there. And they usually give it like maybe a quarter of a page. It's 50% out of the 10 pages. So you kind of need to understand that there needs to be a little bit more emphasis. Visibility is usually well written because people usually address all of the essential requirements here in terms of access to research facilities. Not many mention mentoring, but I think for a DECRA fellow, I think it's particularly important to also recognize that you will be mentored by someone in the school, or you have people around you who have been successful with various schemes and give you advice on research, but also on your future career as well. I think that's important. What people don't address here is the need for HDR students. They just say, I need an HDR student, or I need 2, but they don't really tell us how critical the access to HDR students is. Because remember, different projects require different facilities and also different type of labor as well, right? Some might need an engineer to actually do some parts of the work. So they might actually need a research assistant. And remember, as a college member, your proposal is not my expertise at all. So how do I know that, for example, Jessica is in maths, pure maths? How do I know that she really needs that HDR student to make her project a success? I'm a chemist. I know what it takes to do a project in the lab. I know what the project costs might be like. So, and I'll touch on the project costs a little bit later, but you need to make sure that you, not to me, but really identify how critical it is for you to have a support from an HDR student for this project, so that the ARC really needs to give it to you in case you're successful. So I'll just go through every single selection criteria. So the first one, I would like to talk about the project quality and innovation. These are just the points as taken from the ARC website. So these are just the guidelines for you to address. And if you have a look at the project quality, the first one is an important gap in knowledge that you're trying to address, or you're trying to solve a significant problem. And this is very important. And this is very important to address in the very first page of your application. So what many applicants do, they put too much background, but you need to put enough for us to understand why this problem is important, why this problem is significant. And also, you also need to tell us what the aims of the project are already in that one page. So don't spend too much time highlighting all of the insignificant differences. Just go straight to the core of the problem. What is it that you're trying to solve here? Why is it important, and how you're going to do that? Just that one first page. Of course, your research needs to be novel and innovative. So if something has been done before and you just simply did not do the literature search, and someone on the panel sits going, I already know that this has been solved, it's just that the person didn't do due diligence. Or you might have identified the problem that is important to you, but you didn't translate it well enough for us to understand how important that problem is. And therefore, we don't really see that it's that important. And therefore, you start losing marks on that very first page because we do not know why you're working on, for example, understanding how gas molecules interact at low temperatures. Well, I do not know why it is important. Clearly, you're very passionate about it because you give us all the details, how they're supposed to interact, how to extract these interactions. But I do not know in the whole context of things where this is going to lead us. What are you going to actually understand at the end of this project? You have to be very clear, and I just cannot emphasize that. So I'll just quickly go straight to my dot points here. When you write your project, you need to write it as a compelling case. Well, think about, I don't know if you guys watch this, what is it, think tank, when, you know, business idea people come along and then they're trying to get as much money from the investment people as possible, right? So the venture capitalists, but they need to sell the idea first, right? They need to convince those people with bags of money that what I'm doing is really important and is going to make us even more money, but of course is also going to do a lot of social good. So clarity and of expression is the key to your proposal. Remember, you need to write it as you write it for non-experts. The way I usually imagine it, high intelligence, zero knowledge sometimes in this area, because these are the people who will be reading your proposals. So each DECRA application is assigned to carriages, so 2 members from the College of Experts, and we might not necessarily have the expertise in this area because, you know, we have a limited number of people. You might be specializing in a very niche area of research. You might not be experts in that at all. You might not even understand the grand idea that you have unless you explain it. So you need to be very careful. You need to explain it to people who are highly intelligent, but might not necessarily have knowledge in material. So you need to convince us. Why is it that what you're proposing is very important to do now, especially now, okay? And where it is going to lead. So what will be the outcome of it? It doesn't have to be translational research. No one talks about that, but it can be very fundamental research application, but you need to tell us what would be the major outcomes of the project. It could be, you know, the first step towards the development of new technology, but it could be first step towards the development of new theory that can then result in something else, but you need to explicitly tell us. Do not assume that we're going to work it out by reading the application. We're not. Because, let me be honest, if I have to read 50 proposals in 6 weeks, good luck for me. You know, I'm not going to take 2 weeks to work out exactly what you're trying to do. If you didn't convey it on the paper, I'm not going to work out. So it's your job to convince me that you have a compelling case, and I need to give you money because it may result in a new theory, new technology, a new, maybe even device. But you need to convince me why it is important to do it now and why you're the best candidate to do it. So remember, college members read tens of proposals at once. So your project needs to be exciting, needs to stand out in the crowd, needs to really attract our attention. So it really needs to grab us and say, okay, this is exactly what we want to do. Please avoid the use of excessive scientific jargon relative to your field of expertise, because remember, there will be non-experts reading your proposal. We do not understand all of that jargon. I'm not a physicist, but I read a lot of proposals in physics. I don't understand that jargon. I know some, but I don't know at all. So you need to make sure that you do not lose non-experts in your explanation as well. And remember, it's all in the balance because you have background, methodology, research plan, you have benefit feasibility to address. It's only 10 pages and it has to be in balance. It can't be, you know, I'll spend 5 pages on background and then I just briefly talk about my methodology, right? Then I kind of, you know, you don't have to provide us with a textbook, but you need to give us enough information to convince us that it is an important topic that you're studying. And it needs to be studied and it needs to be done now. And I already mentioned before, clarity of expressions, clarity of your presentation is the key to your success. If I don't really understand where you are heading, you're not going to get really high marks as a result. Nothing to do with your proposal being bad, it's just that you're not clear enough to me to really understand what your project is about. And also don't underestimate the power of creative figures and breaks and spaces. I know you want to cram as much information as possible. You don't leave any breaks, you don't have figures, especially, you know, if I read proposals in physics. I know maths is a little bit more complicated. You can't really do figures, but you can do equations.
You can totally do figures in that period.
Okay, so don't underestimate that, because if you want to excite a non-expert, an image I think says 1,000 words, because then it's clear to me that it's clear to you what you're trying to do. So it's kind of a double whammy. You're convincing me even more that your proposal needs to be supported. So this is the project quality. Let me talk a little bit more about the investigator capability. So on the ASC website, it doesn't really say much, right? So it says, oh, you need to produce high quality research outputs and then demonstrate the capability to build collaborations both within Australia and internationally. I have to say that for the MPC panel, the metric has been important. And here's a piece of advice here. If you do not include metrics in your application, I'm not allowed to go on Google Scholar or any engine searches to find out more about you. I can only judge what you write in the proposal. I cannot go and look up, or have you published papers in the meantime? Have you done anything? Whatever is in your proposal, that's what I judge on the day. So if you don't give me anything, any metrics about yourself, if you don't compare yourself to your peers in the field and saying, hey, I am head and shoulders above everybody else because I've done this, this, and that, how do I know? If I only look at your publication record. I do not know how many papers one should publish in pure maths in order to be successful. I mean, I now know I've been on enough committees that I know even one paper a year is a very good outcome for young academics, young researchers. But, you know, remember, fields differ. You know, in chemistry, we expect more. We expect quantity as well. So in chemistry, for example, if you don't publish you know, several papers, at least 10, probably I'm not going to have success with this scheme. And it's only because it's relative. Remember, it's relative to the actual applicant quality. So if we have high quality applicants, you know, some of them would have impressive age indices. How can you compete with that, right? That's 50%. So then we need to make sure that you also present all the other details about yourself. Any awards and prizes that you have won, it could be even a poster prize, right? But it means that you're putting yourself out there, you're confident, you're not afraid, you're going to be judged and be awarded for your research. The other aspect that usually younger applicants do not cover very well is HDR supervision. We know that you do not have opportunity to supervise your own students. We know that. We know that you are postdocs, you are research associates, but please talk about any co-supervision that you have had, because at the end of your application, you need to demonstrate to me that you can do an independent research and you can supervise students. So you're not just going to be your own person, right? So you can actually also supervise and mentor students as well. I think it's very important. So usually we don't get this information. So some applicants just don't write about it. And we know that they probably did co-supervise students, just that they didn't explicitly address that. It's very important because remember, especially if you're asking for HDR support in your application, we need to make sure you have demonstrated your ability to supervise students. If you haven't, then we start questioning it, right? Why are you asking for an HDR student? Are you capable of supervising a student in this case? If you have been part of any successful grant applications, especially if you're an NCI, please mention that. It's very important. That also demonstrates to us your vision, your independence, your ability to work in a team. And as I understand, and trust me, we understand that majority of you are not going to be NCIs, just because of the way the system works, right? Younger researchers are usually not included because they don't have that stellar track record compared to the senior academics. But you can already say that you have been part of that project, you have contributed to it, so that we can see that you have had the taste of success through that. So, and you know how the system works as well. And that also helps us. Basically, yeah, convince us that you're ready to run an independent project, you're ready to supervise students, and you're ready in the position to establish collaborations. So you need, yes.
Sorry. Are you taking questions right now? Because I missed the start.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Thanks. So the top point, how have you seen someone effectively compare themselves to other people in the field with metrics? So I'm not sure how to do it. Like, if I go up and look at other people's metrics, or if you've got a DECRA them or.
Correct. So usually you rely on the knowledge that the college already has. So we kind of already know by the discipline where it should be properly standard. But you can emphasize it. Okay, do I publish in P1 journals? You know, how many citations do I have already? Are my papers of interest? And then you can say, okay, usually for someone like me in my field, it would be roughly 500 citations, but I have already attracted 1,000 because I've done this, which was also nice.
Sort of soft like that. You don't need
Correct.
to exactly.
No,
okay.
not exact details. Also emphasize on the quality of your publications. So the P1 journals, and you know, you can go to site Margot and work out, you know, what's the percentage of your publications in the top 10 tier journals, and that's emphasized on that. So it's kind of both. I think at this stage of your research, it's both quality and quantity at the same time. Really depends on the discipline. As I said, for mathematicians, we don't expect them to do 10 papers, but we expect them to maybe publish a couple, but in a very good journal, right? That's on any mathematician say, wow, that's amazing. That's equivalent to, you know, having almost like an award in some ways. But for example, if you are an experimental physicist or a chemist, we also expect a little bit of the quantity as well, just to see the contributions to the projects. So, you know, if you just publish one paper in Nature, that trade to us that should have the capability of performing your independent research. Because, you know, usually if you're part of a bigger team, we don't know what your contribution was. So it's also important to emphasize that in your application. What was your contribution among the 10 people on that paper launch? So it's one thing to say, oh, I have a nature paper, but the other thing to say, actually, I was integral to the development of the site. Then it's clear to us, okay, you were one of the leaders, not paper. I think, we also look at the collaborations you have established. So if leaders in the field want to work with you, that also adds to your credibility. It means that you're doing something well. So if other leaders in the field really want to work with you. So that's important. And that kind of all needs to be written in that section to tell us a little bit more information. And as I said, don't underestimate the supervision part. That's important. We know you can't have the opportunity just to supervise students yourself, but co-supervision is important. And name your words. You might think, oh, co-supervision is more important. Put it in, right? Just to showcase that you have been assessed against other people, and at a prestigious conference, you did have that post-fight. That's important for yours, the stage of your career. That's important. Covered it all here. Yeah, and the other thing is, I know you all have PhD supervisors. I know you have postdoctoral supervisors, but it's also very important to kind of identify your independence in your area from your supervisors. You're not doing what they are doing, you're actually having your own independent titles. We know they can do it, but we need to be convinced you can do it. And sort of identifying yourself in that area. What is it that you will be contributing? That is not theirs, but it's yours. And usually, people who have really good track records, they can easily translate that. So, and really showcase their independence in this case. It's people, I guess, who are not probably confident in themselves, who doubt themselves. So that's when it translates in a little bit of a confusion in that part of the application when you can't really work out really generating your own ideas. So you really want to become an independent researcher or not. And remember, it's important to us. We're giving you a lot of money. So we need to make sure that you will successfully complete that project, and it will also, bring a lot of social good in terms of student supervision as well. That's very, very important. And if you've had any interactions during your career, please tell us. It's all very confidential. I'm not going to tell anyone, but if you did have some sort of treatment, you were in a hospital for a number of months, or you had to move universities. So sometimes it might be, you have to move from the US to Australia. If you're affected by COVID, of course, do write about that as well. So, you could not perform certain experiments in the lab because your lab was in the lockdown, and therefore the publication record was not as high during that time. But always finish on the positive note. You always need to say, but now, I have managed to publish those papers, and I'm attracting more students, Yes.
So just on that, how to do that, that goes into this investigating.
That's
part.
investigating, yes.
And is the best way to do that kind of say, I've had X amount of time, full-time researching post PhD?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Rather
And if you're
than saying, I
job,
was unemployed because of COVID or something like that. So is it more like, this is what I have done?
yes,
And that's,
turn it into positive.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, you could be a postdoc working on an ARC project, but then you could emphasize this, I still found time to do my own research as well. And as a result, I established one collaboration, I published a couple of papers. That's also very important to do that. I know that in your mind, well, maybe it's not that significant. Actually, it is significant to us because that shows leadership, that shows initiative, and these are very important qualities for DECRA applicant. Very important for us to know that we will be successful.
And then on that collaboration then, can that really only be evidenced with a publication or a successful grant? Or are there other ways that can be evidenced?
It could be any other ways, right? It could be, and currently we are looking at applying for a grant, or we're working on a, good
So
paper.
intentions as well.
Yes, that's right. So you need to kind of demonstrate some evidence. And look, not necessarily everything results in a publication straight away. If you want to publish a high profile paper, that usually takes time and a lot of data analysis. And you need to demonstrate to us that, it's not because, sometimes applicants just write, yeah, and I have established collaborations with da 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 da. Well, did you just meet them at the conference? Did you just have a conversation, or did you actually start a project with this? Do you share students, or do they request your expertise because you are so amazing and ask you to contribute something towards their project? So that's important to clarify to us. I mean, I know you guys will think, this part I need to write it as if, I'm selling myself. I mean, the way I usually look at it, just tell us exactly what you've done. I know that you might find these details unimportant. They are important to us. Just tell us what you have done, that's all. And usually I do recommend for someone else to read that part, especially someone who knows you really well and who has very good memory. So I have a couple of people like this in my arsenal. So I send that stuff to them and then they go, you forgot to mention this. What about that? You also did this. So maybe you should bring it all together. So someone who really knows you. So you can't really send that part to someone who would say, oh yeah, reads well. You don't really want that. You actually want it. Usually it would be useful. Or you might have a mentor already. It would be your mentor. It could be a close friend who has worked with you. It could be your partner, who has seen you all the stages in your career. For me, for example, my husband is a physical chemist. He's a successful scientist. So it was that for me in the very beginning, because then he would remember, oh, you did that too. Oh, that's right. I forgot about it. So yeah. In terms of your project quality, your actual project proposal, I do recommend that you send it not just to one, but to a couple. And not necessarily in your area of expertise. It could be someone outside of your area of expertise who actually is one you know what. I should get it. I don't. You also want to send it to an expert just to make sure you're not going to jump over the rainbow. That what you're trying to do is actually feasible. You're not grasping a straw. You're not trying to come up with a theory that's just so far-fetched that's just not going to happen. So I think it's very important to seek feedback from various people, and I usually do that, and I'm just confronting. Very daunting, you're pushing yourself out there. I shouldn't kind of say I'm open for criticism. The older you get used to that, the better, because as the time goes on, it will become harder and harder to accept criticism. So the earlier you learn how to do it, I think the better for your career. And you start taking it less personally, because the first thing we do when we learn, we take it personally, but it's not right. People actually give you feedback because they care. If actually, as a matter of fact, when they say it reads well, in my opinion, they don't necessarily care because, well, I know it reads well, but I want to know, well, does it hit the note that I want it to be very bright and clear? So do you actually know what I'm trying to do here? Which is that as well. I guess, be prepared for criticism. If you are not, don't send it on. But I guess, you're putting yourself out there for other people to assess your proposals. So it's better for someone close to you to tell you that, hey, I think it needs work, than a detailed assessor rushes your application by saying, this is gibberish. I have no idea what it is. You don't want that out. So
I second that, everything you said, get somebody who already knows and supports you and wants to see you succeed, have them read it first. Before you send it off to a bunch of strangers, absolutely.
yeah. And guys, there is always criticism. I always thought, when I was a young scientist, I just tried for absolute perfection. And then I realized there is no such thing, because you can always find a flaw in what you're doing. But one thing you need to recognize that you didn't have the capacity or the capabilities to do that at the time, because you didn't have the right equipment, or you didn't have the right development to human theory. So that was the best you could do, right? Of course, you could criticize that, but if it's the best you could do, well, that's the best you could do, right? Then no one can really throw stones at you, because, well, there is no imaginary equipment that you can suddenly use and produce better results. So I always look back at what I did, and I was thinking, I could have done this better, I could have done this better. But I think it's becoming confident enough to say, I think this is it. I can let other people see. And then, you continue to open that, because in all of your subsequent papers, I don't know how it works for you, because I'm a theoretical chemist. We're always trying to find what we did in the past. We take it, we refine it, we're producing a better theory. Right? So, but at the time, what we did, that was the best thing we could do. Right? And then we realized, okay, how to improve it. We made the improvements, and we moved on. Do you have more questions about this? I think I've covered it all. Yes.
So, I'm in earth sciences, and
Yeah.
like within our field, there's a lot of sub-disciplines,
Yes.
and it's hard to know sort of at what depth to stop trying to, that you should start be comparing yourself with sub-disciplines versus everybody else in the whole of your field of geoscience, for example. And I don't know how that's viewed for people who aren't within the field, like college experts, people that are reading this aren't all going to be in my really niche thing that I do. So of course, so they I don't know how fine detail to get when I was comparing myself against other people.
At the end of the day, if you do emphasize that you're working in this niche area, there is only, I don't know, 100 around the world. Right? Perhaps it's more difficult to make a comparison with this. So still a young field. Then you can say, I can compare myself, to the general field, and in principle, well, you don't need to make that comparison by just simply emphasizing that you're working in this niche area and really indicating what you are. Right? I still have published this. I developed this theory. I helped towards the prediction of that particular parameter, or construct that particular experiment in this case. So when it comes to the for example, I'm a theoretical chemist, and I do both applications and development. And I know that when it comes to the development, it usually takes a long time for people to start citing papers. And you need to then emphasize that. But then you need to say, okay, what is it that you have developed? What is it that you published? And was it published in good journals? Q1 journals in this case. Yeah. So there is always a way around it, how you can present yourself in a positive light.
And in this investigator and capability section, I've seen a few examples of other people's, and there's a lot of variability in how much space people spend on different parts of it, right? You've spoken mostly here about like it's almost like the CV part, but then there's also, I feel like there are sometimes people who spend the majority of it explaining a lot of the details of the research that they've done and explaining how that's relevant for the field. And I don't, yeah, I guess like, what's your opinion on which way around is more easy to understand if you're not in the field?
If I'm not in the field, do you need to explain to me the importance of your contributions? Because I would have no clue that, especially if it's a niche area. You need to tell me why is it that you're doing this? Why is it important to do that? And also explain to me, you know, give a little bit more detail as to what is it that you've achieved and how did this inspire the community to do something else. So it's really all about your impact on the research field. I know lots of people include a lot of details, which sometimes kind of washes a little bit over our heads, because ultimately I read your research proposal first. I recognize your area. I maybe already understand what you're trying to do. So I'm trying to put your research record through the lens of your research proposal. Do you have the expertise to do that proposal? Have you done or achieved something already in that area? So is this idea based on just simply your observation, or is there already some very solid work that was done and that you're basing your idea on a very solid foundation? You know, there is another part, you know, describe your scientific contributions relevant to this proposal. So many people put lots of various things, which is fine. Look, I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother other people. It sort of demonstrates, I guess, your versatility by performing multiple projects, but the main emphasis should be on your research proposal, right? So that you can actually do that. So you have to demonstrate to me that you have produced results already, or you have done all the training, research training, it could be equipment training, that you are capable of doing that project. Okay. And then everything else becomes a bonus. All of that.
So when you talk about DECRAs, they're always kind of like, and this is just from lots of, and well, if you're just out of your PhD, it's like no way. And you know, even to the stage of like, well, you don't have a nature, especially like you're also not going to do it. Not true. Yeah, so I just wanted to know, like, you know, your opinion on that and how, you know, so you've got like the metrics up there and how much you compare between candidates, even though candidates have, you know, different opportunity levels at different point in their career. Does it end up swinging towards people that are closer to the end of time that they could have won?
You know, it's a very good question, and it's also the one that is very difficult to answer, because sometimes you get candidates who are absolutely amazing and they're just first year after their PhD. Because during their PhD, they established multiple international collaborations. They have, you know, they developed this particular technique that was in demand by so many people around the world that they basically, you know, received a lot of opportunities to contribute towards other people researching on so I think it's both. It's a quantity and quality for you guys. So you don't need to have a major paper, but you do need to have a majority of your things to be published in one journals. That's important. So, and you know, if you have a nature paper, maybe you don't need to have as many other papers. If you don't have a nature paper, I think then you need to demonstrate the breadth of the publications. must. Because for us, it's also a matter of knowing, can you write your own papers without your supervisor? Can you read your own research? They'll actually give you all this money and you can become successful academic administrator. That's what we are looking at the end of it. So I would like to demystify your comments by saying that yes, if you are closer to the end, the 5-year time frame, you probably have a better track record. But it doesn't mean you can't apply 2 or 3 years if you already have enough evidence that you can do your project and you are on the rising trajectory, because that's very important to us. So we can see your publication records are going up, they're not doing this. Right? Because they might be doing this and you plan at the end of 5 years, you might be questioning that too. Oh, maybe actually, you wanted to do something and then your supervisor was not available and you couldn't, so like we really need to see what training needs to be done. So,
It's not good trajectory in number of papers, quality of papers, and
impact,
so H and D.
quality,
And citations through that.
yes, yes.
So it'd be good to not only have your current H index, but also show how that's changed. Or
Yes, usually people cite, or in the last, so for example, I have a number of citations, 500 citations. Majority, 70% of those citations have appeared in the last years. That's important. They're not, you're also right, that's an indication to us that you're on the upward trajectory. So, look, sometimes we see applicants who do have contributions to nature and science papers, and their project is confusing, and they start with project. And remember, as a college member, I have to rank 40+ applicants, and my ranking becomes very important. Because if you are 20 out of 40 on my list, drops from me. Yeah.
I'm just curious how, I don't know how I would do what you're describing, where you have people who are like, just got their PhD to like this year, like 7 years post PhD or something with interruptions with COVID and things. And I don't know how you can compare the impact of these people relative to their opportunity very well. It's like struggling to figure out how you can strike a balance there if you have 2 candidates and one is, has had like 4 PhD students graduate and one just got their PhD. Is it? Yeah, what's it like? How do you do it?
It's very difficult, and that's when you look at the impact of your research. Okay? Yes, you're absolutely right. You have graduated with students, you go up on the list as well, right? And then we start looking, okay, what's the impact that you're generating? Are you, as a result of your research, other people have started publishing all these amazing papers or have invited you to be part of their collaborative teams? So that's what we look at. So, and then, you might have graduated with students, but then, you're publishing maybe fewer papers on average that is required. So we don't see your students end up on those papers. You're not the last, you're still in the middle of that. So then suddenly your ranking starts to drop. So it's all also about leadership, right? So it's one thing to graduate students, but also to let them lead their research publications as well, with you becoming a senior author. That's important to us. Then in the end, right? So it's not just, I have done all of that, but what's the actual impact? What's the outcome of this, right? Maybe your students ended up having stellar postdocs somewhere. Tell us. It means that you have graduated students who've been snapped up by some prestigious laboratory. That's important to us. Or, like some of my students who get hunted by artificial intelligence companies now, which is very good for me, but like then I can't offer them research. Maybe just being snapped up right after their PhD. So, and that's kind of the outcome that you want, the application. So have you produced stellar researchers as a result of that? That shall also start in an independent career. But this is very difficult, and usually there is a lot of discussion behind the scene that happens. As colleges, we have independent Zoom meetings to discuss that, and we think about it very carefully. Just yeah, so it's a tough job.
Right. Yes, about the reviewing. Do you think that there's two college of experts on it, and two, would they be more closer to your area of expertise that they brought in as previous NRC recipients? Or
it varies. So some of us are assigned to these DECRA Future Fellowship panels because we've had previous success. So I have 2 fellowships from the ARC. It's both, it's your expertise and your success with that particular scheme. That's important. So when I say 2 college members, so on the panel, we usually have 10 or 12, I think it depends really on the number of applications, but 2 out of this 12 would be assigned to you. And their area of expertise might not necessarily match. One of them would be very closely related or as close as possible, because if you're in a niche area, and there are not many experts, around the world, right? You might get a geoscientist, but not necessarily the expert in your area. Like I'm a, theoretical chemist, and I am the only theoretical chemist on the panel, and sometimes I don't get people because I might have conflicts of interest with the person applying. So then it means that it will be assessed by a chemist. You might not have touched the computer in its entire life, and then that happens. And I have had cases like this where I have to declare the conflict of interest because some of the applicants do not. Or I have been on grants with them, or I have published a paper with us. Yeah. Guys, I know that I probably will to. You all sound a little bit like not too fast, I'm not sure. I think what I want to tell you is that I know it's not easy, but it is doable. Just giving you tips, right? So now you're in that niche area, you will never get an expert, on the SC panel who's in your area. So then you need to be really clever in that. Okay, you need to spend a little time on it.
Were there any questions online as well?
They can unmute themselves. We can stop sharing. Or at least do.
Can I just
Okay.
quickly go through the benefits section first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry. Again, as I mentioned before, this is the worst section usually written even by really good applicants. And you just go, oh my God, what did they do here? Please be very clear as to what is it, what outcome, really the main outcome that you're trying to achieve in the proposal. I know lots use cliche phrases. They don't sit well with us because we really want to know about your research. What is it that you're going to produce in the end. Input, your outcome does not have to be commercial. As I said before, it could be, a theory development that will result in further development of new technologies or new materials, right? Doesn't have to be translational immediately. And you do need to tell us whether Australia will benefit from it. And I know it's a little bit of double dipping because there is the national interest test as well, that you're right. We don't see the national interest test, the panel. We only see the benefit section, okay? So therefore, it's very important for you to tell us a little bit more. And in the national interest test, so I was on the committee, so we had to basically, so the AIC underwent a bit of a restructuring there as to how to judge and assess the national interest test. But essentially, the whole idea behind it is that your research money comes from taxpayers' money. So the taxpayers are allowed to know what is it that you're doing. It doesn't have to be commercial, it doesn't have to be translational, but you really need to explain it to the general audience. Why is it important to do what you do? Why do we need to steal to do that? So please remember to also translate that to the benefits section as well, because we don't see the national interest section.
So in that respect, then, the ARC is interested in, what is the benefit to Australia? Some people have told me that a DECRA and, when they think about this from that sort of taxpayers' money perspective, is that they're very conservative with what projects get funded, in that if something is very Australian focused, it is more attractive than something that's not. So, and the reason I ask is because I have two project ideas that I'm thinking of for this. And one is very Australian focused, and one is more broad. And I get lots of different
opinions. Look, it's a tough one. Well, thank you for asking tough questions. No, look, I mean, the emphasis is not necessarily on Australia, but the global community as well. I mean, I know that when you read the guidelines, the AIC guidelines, there is a kind of feel like there is a little bit of emphasis on Australia. On the panel, we are not necessarily just focused on Australia. I think it's more to do with the benefit to the community in general. And remember the benefit of science itself. Because you might, it's the first step in the development of a particular technology that will, I don't know, revolutionize how we polymerize materials, how we produce electrodes, for cars and, things like that. So I would not say that you will be in disadvantage if your project addresses more global concerns. I think it really depends on you presenting a compelling case. And if you really love your case, and then you say, well, as a matter of fact, it's not a Australian part, the global community national benefit. But as I said, this section. Just for some reason, it's lost on applicants. And I'm smoking, right? Because it's just, no one really pays attention to that. And we're amazed. Like sometimes we get 4 sentences and it's 15% of your application. You just go, what? Why?
So would you almost then, if you've got 10 pages and it's 15%, would you just go, I'm gonna, it's 15% of that space that you do to it?
No. Would be sensible. You might, for your research project, you might need to spend a little bit more time on background.
Yes.
I'm not saying, right, 5 or 6 pages of the background.
No.
No. but it has to be in balance. Everything has to be balanced. And that's when we come to the benefits, and it's just 4 sentences and then the feasibility and it's like 2 pages, right? And not in balance, right? The other thing is I also would like to emphasize that if you use a unique type of equipment or you're part of a particular global team, like for example in physics. So if you have access to a telescope that only Australia has access to, and you're going to capitalize on that particular infrastructure, amazing. Please let us know that, because then it means that you're actually using what Australia has already invested in to further research and develop methodology. That's very, very important. If you're going to use any other type of infrastructure that you have access to, for example, Australian synchrotron or ANSTO, right? If you want to do, for example, radio pharmaceutical labeling, tell us about it. Or if you want to do some particular experiment, and you have access to crystals, so that we know you have research facilities in place to do your own research. So it doesn't look good if you say, well, all of my research really depends on me applying to the Australian synchrotron, getting time there. Well, what are you going to do in between? What if you're not successful? And there are only 2 rounds a year. We know that.
So is it almost worth having somebody who's like saving this control
Yes,
on it?
exactly.
It's
Like
gonna be
I
a
have established a collaboration, and therefore, I can run more samples through the code. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. You need to be clever about it and think about it, but also give us enough information on how you set up. Like, if you think about it, you're a synthetic chemist and you don't even have a lab set up. And no one, not even your mentor, has promised to give you some bench space. But what are we going to think about? We don't even have bench space. So are you going to be able to do this project?
So on that feasibility then again, so for me, I do quite a lot of field work. I need to go and collect places. Part of that process always involves, permits, for instance, and actually engaging with like the Indigenous community there as well. Is that something that the ARC is really looking for as well?
This, we understand, someone needs to pay for you need to get permits, but it's not something that
Not yet.
exactly,
Okay.
but it's not something like, you need to write a research proposal, full-blown research proposal to be assessed by yet another committee to be decided, right?
Okay.
So we understand that there are stumbling blocks. Think about it.
Okay.
I mean, we don't download the application because of that. So, people need to sometimes have ethics approval as well. So, and I understand that there will be some blocks like this, but it's not something that even exactly. That's right. We will not stop you from continuing.
So, I feel like Julia and I, we're both in the same sort of field, so I don't want to take up too much other people's time. But in other sciences, not in geoscience, where what we can do is sometimes like directly work on the landscape, for example, of Australia, and say this is how Australia changed over the last few 100,000 years. Like that's got like more explicit benefit to Australia to understand, or like how the climate is going to impact agriculture in Australia. Like, but there must be in other sciences more of like an argument for benefit around showing that Australia has like may have competitive advantage in this area.
Absolutely.
Like if you go for it. And so like what as a person who's not, you're reading tons of proposals that aren't in your field directly, like you're seeing these benefit statements. Like is it easy to distinguish between an argument around competitive advantage or about like explicit benefits to Australia, and like which one is more compelling potentially?
Uh,
Are they just written like not really?
Well, usually they're not really written that way, I have to say. But in this case, remember, I'm giving you the score on the scale from A to E. Right. And I am allowed to give A's to a number of people. She just said I need to rank them in the end and say, well, this one was better. And then it's a combination of all of the selection criteria that will come together for me. And really, in all honesty, it's basically what impressed me most. What I think was a best written case. I can still give A for your benefit, but then I need to rank you. And
So the selection criteria that you're and your ranking stuff, they're really like at least
I don't
grade
compare
aren't-
people, right? So
don't-
where I rank you,
Yes.
I don't compare you to the rest of the applicants. I read your proposal. And I think, on the scale of A to E, what was it for me, right?
Yeah.
Have you addressed this criterion really well? If you did, it's an A. Right? Not so B, and then so on and so forth. And if you completely miss the point, it's an E. Usually. Because usually applicants spend a little bit more time.
But then you rank them after.
So put it this way. So I had 5 applicants and I gave them A for all the criteria, right?
Yeah.
So they all ended up with the final A. But I have to rank them. I need to say that this application was better than that. And I need to say, well, they're all A's, but this is number 1, this is number 2, number 3, number 4.
But you never put people who've got B's above A's in the ranking afterward.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No.
right. So
No,
so
not at all.
independently graded. and then
Independently,
maybe
correct,
within the
correct. So when we're instructed to do that, we don't compare applicants to each other, we only mark your application based on its merits on what I see in front of me. But then there is a discussion at the end, okay? Who will go first, who will go last? So sometimes based on my scores, I don't really have to do much of the ranking, the system does that for me. But I can go and change. Because if someone convinces me that, as a matter of fact, this was done before, I can go and change. Just before the committee starts, because maybe I just missed the point because I'm not an expert, and the expert tells me
You're talking
Because-
about external reviewers.
external
Yeah,
reviews,
okay.
detailed assessments, and then they go. Yeah. Because I see you don't see who the detailed assessments. I see them. And I see if they're leaders in the field and they tell me.
In the room, I'm just conscious of time as well.
Sure, but I'm happy, I only have another commitment at 12, so. Happy to chat. Unless.
Well, we have some information about, basic information that Anna's
Sure. Maybe I should
got
share
to
this.
discuss as
2
well.
minutes, yeah.
Couple of minutes, and then I have some stuff prepared just on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that this is, I mean, the key experiences, I think is actually quite helpful. You can bring that we can, so I'm happy to carry on, as long as there are questions, so yeah.
I was just curious about the repetition in between these different sections, so there are things that
Yeah,
might mention benefit that might also go into the background, and as you read one of these, do you get in the way you can
Yes.
see things coming up more?
absolutely.
Alright.
And I see, I saw that in the job section. And it's exactly the same thing in the investigative section within the proposal. Oh, we do. We kind of feel like, well, you have an opportunity to bring something else to us. Tell us a little bit more. Yeah, so we get a bit of knowledge.
So, but that being said, if you didn't fully evidence something that you were saying, talking about in the benefit section, we assume that you'd be able to Yeah. And something we mentioned a couple of pages back in section.
Yes, yes, so the benefit is really like an executive summary, right? So this is the actual outcome. You know, you don't have to. So the benefit is never appeared because, as I said, people will just take it from other applications and then just dump it and just leave it as it is. But the rope section and investigative section, so sometimes people just write exactly. My advice is don't repeat yourself because I already read things about you. Use that space to tell me more about you. Look, we're not harsh. I'm not sorry because he did that. I'm going to give him this. Of course, I'm not going to do that. It's just that you know you're not using the allocated limited number of pages well. That's all.
Yeah,
You
sure.
could have done it better. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just more interested in whether these sections should stand alone or they can.
So when I read the investigative capability within the proposal, I really need to make sure that you are capable of research. You can do this research. And when it comes to the road section, I can't expect a little bit more elaboration on what you have stated in that investigative section. So to give me a little bit more detail, because you're limited, you only have 10 pages, right? So here is like an extract, okay, this is me, my short bio, and then give me a little bit more details in the road section, yeah. But I'm not, like, look, we are, but I'm not going to reflect it in my mark. If you convince me. I just mentioned, again, I like to demystify certain comments. Provide rejoinders. So hands up if you think they're rubbish, and we don't need to do that. Well, the reason being is, okay, so how the system works, right? So you get from 1 to 4 detailed assessors. They give you a mark, and the average mark almost 50% of your final mark, right? So then the 2 college members also rank the proposal, and our average mark forms another 50% of your final. Okay. So we discussed on the 25% of proposals. And 25%. So we draw a line, it's an uncertainty line. If you fall below it, don't discuss it. You're about to do. And our uncertainty zone is a little bit larger than what we can spend money. And therefore, this is where the real battle begins. So this is where the real discussion begins. If you're at the top, and everyone agrees, yes, and we made the proposal, the best proposal I've read, fine, but no one is going to question. But what's going to come into question is that zone. So where you can fall below the uncertainty line, it means you're not going to fund it. Guess what? This is where you're enjoying those super important. Because if there was criticism, but I still gave you a good mark, but there was criticism from the detailed assessor, I need to know how you responded. And this is when sometimes the applicants do not do themselves a good favor by being wishy-washy about it, and then we go, because we rank them again.
What percentage of applicants are being discussed in that little band there, or where the rejoinder matters?
Look, it depends on how much money you have. So it really depends on how many colleges.
If there's 200 available, it's probably like 50 max.
We are, well, this is not how it works, right? It's 200 across all panels.
Right.
So in the MPC, we would probably have 30 plus. So we would probably discuss 20, 22.
So just a clarification here, the MPCD panel, this is maths, physics, chemistry.
Yes.
It's E.
Both sides.
Earth sciences, okay. And so for the other, I guess biological sciences in the faculty would be in a different panel entirely.
Correct. They will be in a tournament. And I think they usually get less applications, few applications than us. I think the engineering panel usually gets more applications than us. And yeah, but I suspect that.
The only reason I said it was a waste of time is because that sounds like only 10% of the rejoinders actually matter, really.
Correct.
And
But you don't
90%
really have, right?
No.
That's the thing.
yeah,
So
that's
do
a lot of
your job.
people's time. Yeah.
Do your job.
Yeah.
And please do not repeat all the positives. I've already read your proposals. I've already read your proposal 3 times. By the time I read your rejoinder, I don't need you to tell me how amazing you are. Again, in so many words, I want you to tell me there was one particular criticism by a detailed assessor who questioned your methodology. I need you to address that for me. And I need you to tell me, are you going to address that? Is that real criticism? And if it is, doesn't mean, it's a big negative in your proposal. It means that how are you going to tackle that criticism? What are you having in place in order to address that? And that's why I think do not underestimate the power of diligence. Do not. Yes, you might not score well enough. You will be in that 75%, bottom 75%. No one will reach your rejoinder, but on the off chance that you might be in that bottom 25%, no, I will do a good job to make sure I address that criticism.
I'd say too, it's not totally wasted, even if you're in the bottom 25 or 75% and it's never written. Because you can reuse lots of this proposal. And
Yeah.
by thinking carefully about how you are responding to criticisms of this proposal, that's only going to make your next one better next year.
And please don't tell me like, someone is an idiot, really. I don't need to know that. I only need to know, is there the reason why that criticism was raised in the first place? And how you're going to accommodate that. And as I said, sometimes in that final round, applicants would not score well because the rejoinder was bad. What is it? I don't know. They did not say anything. And I think Jessica's absolutely right, and I already mentioned it to you. You need to embrace criticism. You need to start to learn how to address it very early on in your career because it will keep coming. Right? And is it no, it's not nice. Of course, you feel hurt and you try to take it personally, but don't try to have a cool head. So don't reply to your rejoinder straight away. Take time, digest, talk to other people, highlight all the bits that are negative, and include them in your rejoinder. Just don't say they're all wrong. I'm going to go down wrong. Because you do not know, there was criticism in the detailed assessor's comments, but that detailed assessment might have still given you an A.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so hard to know.
It is so, I know. Just pretend. I mean, you kind of already can guess, but it's good. But usually, it depends, I think, on the discipline. Like chemists are harsh, but a lot of disciplines, actually the assessors aren't that harsh. They might say something negative because they want you to think about it. They might still give you an A.
That makes your job harder,
Well, they can tell me about it. Absolutely, and that's why I tell them, you need to tell me exactly where you place this proposal. And yes, that makes it so much harder. And then it comes down to your proposal. Did you do a good job to convince me? Oh, absolutely, yeah. So. And that's why, you know, we put on the news. To read and reread. It's more it's a difficult job.
So you don't see the net. Is there anything else you don't see from the proposal that we write?
I don't see a personal details, like tree from what perform and things like that. I only see your professional information. I see your name because it's on the front page, but I don't see details like your citizenship and all those things.
And so I might have missed this at the start, I'm sorry, but the FOR, what is that, what is called field of research codes?
Yes.
Some people have told me that it's like a game and you've got to like figure out which proportion to put and like, so you get the right reviewers, all this stuff, and I don't know if that's real.
Yes, well, yes. Yes and no. So, sometimes I will get proposals from the engineering panel because they're my area of expertise. So someone is doing polymerization and they thought that my expertise much better, and I would get that, even though they would never mention the polymerization FOR code in this case. Okay, so it really depends. Okay, so the ESC also has their own cloud system that identifies the best assessors for that particular proposal. Mine not necessarily go just by their FOR codes, but also by their keywords as well. Really, so look, it's best to match. My advice is don't write a proposal that will automatically be on the border to panels. Like, for example, you're writing an engineering proposal and you're putting way too much chemistry information on polymerization and whatnot, so then you will need to have an expert from the MPC panel. And usually it's harder to sort of deal with these proposals, only because the engineers can, of course, assess the engineering aspect, I can assess the chemistry aspect. And then it's a hard job for us to assess the project overall. So in terms of the FOR codes, I think the good ones that really directed to the MPC panel. In this case, because you are in earth sciences. Where these codes become important is how we select experts, detailed assessors, to provide comments on your proposal. But then, yes, again, I might know experts in the field, but I will replicate them automatically. So yes and no. Okay. So if I'm a non-expert in your proposal, I need to assign a sentence. That then I heavily rely on FOR codes, but if I'm an expert in that area, I know exactly who to assign. I don't care. Yeah. So yes and no. But unfortunately, no. There are no straightforward answers here. I think probably this is it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Catherine, for coming and sharing your experience with us.
Well, good luck, guys. Wish you all the best. I'm sure it will be a conflict of interest even if I am chair. But
You're out on all the monarchs, right? That's an automatic
absolutely,
conflict.
automatically, I'm out on all the knowledge.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thanks
Okay.
again. Thanks very much. Anna, do you want to
Okay.
take a couple of minutes talking about the just getting started?
Is that one?
And you also have to share a screen.
Yeah. Oh. Slideshow. So I did. All right, so I just wanted to introduce myself. This is not going to be this is just the stuff we have to get through on how to get your application in. So I'll just introduce myself. Any questions that you guys have? I'm Anna from the Faculty of Science Research Office. So I can help you with providing you with some templates. I can help you with putting using the project costing model. I can help you with putting your applications through the approvals process, the system called Pure, which you might be aware of. So just keep my number, keep my email if you've got any questions along the way, because it is a bit complicated. Just email me and I'll take you through it. I'll just show you our intranet page. Oh, stop sharing. Stop and show. There it is. All right. Share.
Share the whole screen actually. And then switch between those.
Okay, I don't know. I'll just do this one. And okay, this is our intranet page. We've got links here. We've got so just for any information, this will be updated. We've got all of our due dates. We have specific dates for strategic statements. We have this, some people don't know about this. We've got a bank of successful DECRAs that you can access for your field. So if you go in here, you just email me. Is that still sharing? So you can get copies of other people's applications. I'll include these slides so you can go there, read the title and whichever ones seem to relate to you. That's very helpful. We've got budget links. So the project costing model, we break down the project costing model and we have examples for DECRA applicants on how you cost things and how you put them in RMS, what goes into cash, what goes into in-kind. Oh, I don't think they have in-kind, but if you want to put a PhD stipend, I don't think you would, or a research assistant in your project, then we'll show you how you cost it with the Monash salary scales. And we've got Pure help, how to do certain things, and the NIT statement, updates from MRO. I'll just warn you that Monash Research Office, they're still a bit understaffed. So some of the information on their website is very out of date, or we're still trying to find out what our process is going to be, depending on what their process is going to be. So we'll just keep you updated as we get new information. Share screen.
Do the top left one.
Oh, this is the last one. I won't change it. So I'll just do that one and that'll be it. So was that the next one? Yeah. So first steps, first thing you need to do is create your application in RMS. That'll trigger and put Monash University as your host or admin org. That'll let Monash Research Office know that you're applying through Monash and create a Pure profile for you. And so we will be aware that you're applying, they will be, and we will be sending you information as it comes to hand, or if anything changes. Read the instructions to applicants and the guidelines and start talking to your school, your sponsor, your research director and your head of school. I'll talk more about that in the next slide and who that is. When the scheme opens, which opened on Friday, we'll send you a whole bunch of resources, but we're waiting for MRO to update those resources. And when they get updated, we'll send you some of that information that I talked about as a welcome email, but you'll have my contact details so you can contact me as soon as possible. So school contacts, can you see that the first column is the heads of school and then there's the research directors, they're the information. You talk to these people about getting approval, you talk to them about, they'll help you with your strategic statements and other sections of your proposal. You negotiate your DECRA support with them. They have to approve whatever you put in your budget that's coming from the school. So pretty much with them, start working on your budgets and the approval that they have to give for them. And any other school-based reviews that they might offer, you'll find out from them. I'm not going to go through this. I just want to kind of highlight that there are two systems that work. There's Pure, which is the Monash internal system to get approvals to trigger reviews from MRO. And then there's RMS, which is the ARC, and they don't talk to each other. So sometimes you have to do things in this system and sometimes you have to do things in Pure. So you can read through the steps, it's on the web page, but if you're stuck at any point, just ask me and we'll get it through. With external applicants, I'm not sure if there are any online. We do the Pure part for them because they don't have access to that system. So that's just, that's just what I wanted to highlight. And this is the strategic statement process, which is to be confirmed as well. When you work on that with your, with the head of school, with your sponsors and the research directors and the heads of school, they'll come to us, we'll review them as well. We don't have due dates for that yet, but we'll announce them as soon as we figure out what the process is, because the Monash Research Office might not be checking them this year. It'll just be us. So that might be updated. And these are the deadlines, and these are the to be confirmed are the things we're still waiting on. I just wanted to highlight that the faculty deadline, which is the 1st of December, and that's the deadline in Pure. So in Pure, you've got to push it and the school has to approve it and it comes to the faculty. By that stage, your budget needs to be pretty much finished, complete. That's what we're signing off on. You can still work on other parts of your application, but the budget has to be approved by the school and sorted out, and minor changes to the budget can occur at that stage. And then there'll be another deadline that MRO want it to be finished in MRO. Oh, sorry, I've missed the 17th of November deadline. That's the deadline when MRO want your RMS section to be all green, and you push it in Pure and they'll provide you with an eligibility and compliance check. But again, if you're confused about anything, just contact me. And then the strategic statements will let you know what the deadlines are for that. And I just wanted to highlight there's another workshop that the library is holding on making your publications shine, and they talk about matrix and things like that. So if you want to, it's an online presentation now. So I heard some questions earlier about how you compare yourself to others. They might be able to help you with how you get your, and they've got the Monash systems, you know, like SciVal and stuff, where you can maybe compare yourself to past applicants. We've done that before. So that would be handy to go to. And there's a perfecting your front page with Gary, the ECN rep for the faculty. So you can register for that, where other DECRA applicants show each other the front page and you talk about what you can do better. Or yeah, I think that's how it works, a little workshop. So that's only in person. And just some other resources, but I'll give you these slides.
In the DECRA application, there's like this like letter of support from the university.
That's the strategic statement.
So, okay.
So that's what you kind of work on with your school, with your sponsor and research. No, you write that.
Yeah,
so
but they sign it.
Yeah, well, now they don't even sign it, I think. They've changed the process, yes. So you write that. There's examples in that, and you'll get a template with the MRO. They send out templates of that page and what you need to include in each section of that letter. So we'll send that to you in the introduction email when MRO update their templates.
Due date for that is same as
the final one has to be in RMS. It just depends how many we have to check it. We have to approve it, the faculty. So it'll be earlier than if MRO needs to check it, but that date might not exist this round. So we'll let you know, but that's usually earlier than the application. So start working on that. Yes, but you can get last year's templates and have a look. If you want to see, they might not change as much, but the templates will be available probably within a few days. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did you want?
So I wanted to show some of these documents. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm conscious of time. I don't want to run over much, but so I prepared a couple of things.
Do you want to
Can I share my screen here even?
If we go through there. Yeah. And then we'll put it, let me skip this out. You sure?
let's see what happens. Hello, can you hear me again? Okay, maybe it,
Yep. Sounds back.
okay. Okay, apologies for that. Sorry, I don't know. I guess the Zoom muted the room microphone because I was sharing my personal screen and I had it muted. So apologies for that. Okay, anyway, just a summary of this worksheet. So you'll have this available to you. It gives you some prompts for how to start. The other thing I wanted to go through very briefly was pitching your DECRA. So this is a slide. This is one that I have written by myself. It's very short. This has been my guideline for how I've written basically anything related to research since I went to a presentation like this as a postdoc. That was incredibly helpful. You are going to have to write this first page, and this first page has to be everything, as Katya explained. It has to explain why this is an amazing project. It has to give some context. It can't give too much context. It needs to be, right, there's this gap. So you'll start writing this and you'll freeze. You're not going to know what to do. Somebody at one point gave me some ideas about how to write this statement. And this is the way that I do these things now. So 4 questions, 4 sentences. This will give you a nice first paragraph to work with. It's not going to be enough, but then you can iterate. So what I look at are, first question, what is known? What is known about this project? Can you say in 1 sentence, what's the context? Number 2, what is unknown? Number 3, why is there a need for this particular research? And number 4, how does this project fill that need? Okay, so I have an exercise that I wanted to do. We have about 6 minutes. I still think it's probably worth doing. So online, well, let's see, we've got a few people online who are not administrators. But let me share. So we have some printed copies actually as well of some first pages of other people's projects. Let me distribute. I'm just going to give them out at random. Where did I put them? Oh, I put them up here. Sorry. So these are successful DECRAs taken from the list. So we received permission to distribute these, and they come from all different fields in the faculty. You are not necessarily getting one in your field. But for this exercise, and so I was going to put you into breakout rooms online, but maybe I'll just share my screen with one of these for you to stare at instead. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can read that online or not, if that's too small. The problem is I'd like you to be able to look at the whole screen. Maybe if you can try and open it.
I'm gonna send them my link.
Okay, that's great. So basically what I want you to look at is skim over this and try and identify what is known, what is unknown, why is there a need, and how are they going to fill this need? Okay, so I'll give you just a minute to think about that, and then I'll take some, I'm going to time you 1 minute, literally. Okay, that was 60 seconds. So maybe in the room, can you find it? What is known? Can somebody tell me what is known about the project that you're looking at? Yeah,
I've got stars here that can't be explained by any current models for formation stars.
okay. So that's the name of the project. So that would be, so they cannot be explained. This would probably be more about what is unknown.
Well, I mean, it's known that the stars exist.
Know the stars exist.
Or
All
these
right.
particular stars that can be identified.
I see.
We don't know why, I guess.
I see. So that's kind of wrapped up into one sentence. There are stars out there. We don't understand how they are formed. And so is the point of the project then to try and explain these? Is that
Yeah, I think they have some kind of new model for analysis, like stuff.
all right? Okay, great. Okay. Other examples?
My one, what is known is that nanoscale structure activity is good for new technologies that are renewable energy. But I need to learn more about that, which I'm using a particular technique that I haven't used before.
I see. So this is how, so these are important things. We don't know enough about them. We're going to learn more by using this new technique that has never been used before. So that's how this project is going to be filling that need. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So anyway, if we had a little bit more time, I'd have you talk to each other a little bit more about these and maybe put it into discussion of your own research as well. But these are just some things to be thinking about as you try and put together your first page of research. My advice, so let me go back again to this slide. So we're about out of time. I'm going to let you go. But this will be available. We'll send you a link to a drive with all of this information in it. I think that, yeah. Yeah. So we've got Katja's slides. Yeah, we've got the slides that are presented from Anna. And then these documents as well will also be available. Yes, so this will be available. But anyway, so as you're putting together your DECRA, think about how to pitch it in a way that's even as you go. So first page has to be the most broad, but then as you go along further, you're speaking a little bit more to more detailed assessors. But even so, they're still not as aware, they're not as heavily involved in your research as you are. And I actually find this is the best way to lead out all of my subsections as well. So you already know a little bit about all these stars that I've told you about, but now I'm going to say a little bit more about this specific technique. Well, this is what's known about this technique, but this is what is still unknown about it. And I'm going to be the person to figure out how to use this in this new way that nobody's ever seen before. So you can see that this is it's a useful way of writing the headers all the way through. I also very, very strongly recommend that you speak about your DECRA with other people and you get lots of feedback along the way on it. This is, for many of you, this is going to be the first time writing a major grant proposal, and it's something that is going to help you through the rest of your career. I don't care whether you end up in academia or not. You're going to be writing persuasive statements. And so it's a really useful thing. It is, but it does take a lot of work, and it's a skill that needs to be developed. So, but thanks again for coming. I hope you're able to make it to some of these other workshops, and let us know if we can help you in any way in preparing this, your application. And good luck to you. So we'll close.